Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Wednesday, the 9th of October. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Chris Jack. How's it going, Chris?
Not too bad, not bad. Even during the international week, there's always something on the go.
Yep, absolutely. Plenty to discuss, of course. A big welcome back to all those that like to watch our morning briefings on Facebook. There was just a little bit of period of time where we weren't on there broadcasting live, but we're back on there. I know that's going to bring great joy to many of you who prefer Facebook as your platform of choice for watching your Rangers Review content. So, big welcome back to you all. Right. Well, we're not talking about on-field stuff, Chris. We're talking about off-field changes once again. The big news you broke yesterday is that Creag Robertson has become the latest high-profile figure to quit. He's resigned from his position as Director of Football Operations. It's understood he'll leave the club after just 18 months in the role to pursue opportunities away from the club. I've seen the reaction on social media last night about it. It's fair to say the supporters a tad concerned, shall we say, about the loss of yet another, not necessarily Creag Robertson per se, but another high-profile position that Rangers will look to recruit for. We need a new chairman, a new CEO, new academy director, and a new head of football operations. What's going on, Chris?
A lot of people are leaving the football club, and not a lot of people are being appointed at the football club right now. As you outlined there, it leaves Rangers short of bodies in terms of people just to get things done. It leaves them short of people who are decision makers. Also, the manager is the main figure at the club. The fact that he's still there as it stands, as far as we're aware, that at least gives the football department some stability, and they can also focus on their job in hand. But to have, if Rangers were only looking for a chairman or only looking for a head of academy, it would be an issue. The fact that they're looking for as many people as you outlined there, chairman, chief exec, head of academy, potentially a sporting director, has been mooted among some of the fans as well. Now to go and replace Creag Robertson as well, it leaves Rangers with a really lengthy to-do list. The number of items on John Gilligan's to-do list is growing by the day, and ultimately, when Rangers do get around to filling each of these roles, they have to be filled with the right people, because they need some short-term stability, obviously, but a bit of long-term stability as well. You cannot keep going through these type of off-field changes. So yes, Creag Robertson leaving, or the fact there's no permanent chairman, that doesn't impact on how Cyril Dessers plays. He doesn't score goals or miss chances because Creag Robertson's not in the building. It doesn't impact how the training sessions go, but it feeds into a feeling around about the club, and ultimately all these things flow down. If you are properly structured and properly run at the highest level, that then filters down through each department off the field, and ultimately can filter down into the general mood of the football department. So it's definitely a concern, and Rangers find themselves, as I said, they're in a really, really difficult situation at present.
Yep, a lot of questions coming in off the back of it. Stuart Balmer with a point says, in the grand scheme of things, how important was this fella? Of course, he was promoted to the role. He was at Ibrox for quite some time in previous positions. He was promoted as part of a big reshuffle, of course, under John Bennett last summer. But in terms of his sort of day-to-day work, Chris, was he a big major player?
Depends how you define major player. As you outlined there, he was part of that new era, I feel like, that John Bennett put in place last summer. That feels like such a long time ago, and feels a long. Feels a lot has happened since this new era and this new structure was was presented. Before that, Creag had been the head of business and education, so really working more closely with the academy. He was there for about 7 years or so, I think, having previously been at Falkirk. He held a couple of different roles there. So his promotion, if you like, came at the time where John was keen to kind of give people a chance to move up. So we saw Andrew Dixon, for example, leave. Creag then moved into that football administration type role. We saw Ross Wilson leave. Neil Scoppin then was appointed. We saw Craig Mulholland leave, and Zeb Jacobs was then given the chance to go on as head of academy. Just 18 months or so on, chairman has gone, chief exec has gone, the head of academy has gone, director of football ops has gone. The manager clearly lasted the shortest period of all of them. So it's safe to say that new structure and what we thought was a new era for the club, it's certainly not unfolded for a variety of football reasons, personal reasons, business reasons. It's just not worked out, and it's a long time since Rangers required as many appointments in key off-field roles. And there's always been, at least during the Dave King era, you always had a chairman that was a huge figure at the club. So if you're then looking for an academy director, or you're then looking for a football operations manager, you had a figure like Dave that could go and do that. Also during those times that didn't have to, and those roles were filled for a long time. But you now have a situation where you don't have a permanent chairman. Or John Gilligan will be in there, and he will do his utmost best. But he's short of people round about him now. And where do Rangers go? One, to make these appointments, and when you then do get when you do get people in the door, they have to be the right ones for Rangers, because the club, as I said earlier on, the club just needs stability, direction, probably needs a bit of investment, and there's so many issues on the table right now at Ibrox.
Yep, Denzel with an interesting point. He says, when company officers start leaving any organisation en masse, it's indicative of a greater malaise. What aren't we being told? What do they know that we don't? Your point there. And then RFC 72 says, who's actually going to be the one to hire these people? I know John Gilligan came out on the CEO, said the hope is to have someone in before Christmas, which I certainly hope that is the case. I mean, God, that'll be about 7 months since James Bisgrove departed. But who is going to hire these people, and what concerning is this? A multi-million-pound company, Chris, with no CEO, we touched on, no permanent chairman, no head of football operations, no academy director. You can understand why supporters are getting a little bit miffed and concerned at this situation that is unfolding.
In terms of who'll make the appointment, obviously John has come in as interim chairman to take over from John Bennett, so he will be the key decision maker, if you like, and clearly be heavily involved in those recruitment processes. I know George Letham has been helping behind the scenes for several weeks now. He will clearly have a big role to play in that as well. You're then looking at the remainder of the PLC board. I think when John Bennett left, there was an understanding that other members of the PLC board would have to step up. Also, none of them decided that they wanted to be chairman. No one put their hand up and said, I want to succeed John Bennett, either on a short-term basis or a long-term basis. But you can't have the other members of the PLC board now just happy to take a back seat and say, well, it's someone else's problem. It's a collective problem at Ibrox. Everyone has to almost muck in now. Not everyone has to play their part. Everyone has to have a role to play. And whether you have business interests in America or in the Far East, when you're invested in Rangers, when you hold a boardroom role at Rangers, you have to have Rangers as one of your main focuses every day. So I hope that the other members of the board at this juncture are now saying, well, we have to step up and have to play a key part in these appointments, because I think the chief exec is still the most important one. That's going to define how Rangers operate at a business level and in a sense at a football level. If you can get the chief exec appointment right, that then perhaps takes a bit of pressure off the chairman appointment. And if you get the chief exec appointment right, they can then go out and bring in a Creag Robertson replacement, go and bring in a Zeb Jacobs replacement, go and potentially look at the director of football structure, because all of these things, these roles do need filled. But if you're going to prioritise one, you would rather have a chief exec than have a replacement for Creag Robertson. With all respect to Craig and the job that he's been doing, the chief exec is still the most important appointment that Rangers are going to make here.
It is, but I would be concerned as well. We all know that the situation, what happened with Jim Gillespie, we've not heard anything since then. So that is a worry as well. Gaz and many others saying this as well in the comments. The club is primed for a takeover. This is worrying for the support. Certainly, if you fancy taking over a football club and you looked at Rangers at this moment in time, Chris, you could bring in your own guys. I'd imagine it looked like a shoe-in if you fancied to dip into the football market and invest a wee bit of money.
It's still going to cost tens of millions of pounds to make that happen. Though you look at the shareholder breakdown and you look at who could potentially sell their shareholding at present. If you want to come in and you want to run Rangers, you have to tick off a number of significant shareholders. Dave King, obviously, as the major one. You have to find a way to get Douglas Park shares, John Bennett shares, obviously come into that as well. If you buy off those three, you then start to get somewhere, but you then have other investors like John Halstead, like Julian Voltart. You do have to have complete control of Rangers, to have that autonomy that I would imagine any potential investor would like to have. It's going to cost you a lot of money to pick off all these individual shareholders. Word from the club in the last few weeks has been that the current investor core, the current backers are fully committed. I know Dave King said a few weeks ago that he believed there had almost been investor fatigue, and I would assume, without knowing these guys' personal finances, they have put a significant percentage of their personal wealth into Rangers. In some regards, they may be overextended, if you like. It's maybe cost them more than they initially bargained for. But the word has been in the last few weeks that the current core of investors and guys that are involved in the club are not planning on going anywhere. Now, of course, money talks. At some point, if someone says, I will give you a huge profit on your stake, I'll allow you to get out of this and you don't have to worry about Rangers Football Club anymore, that may be an appealing proposition for some. But I think people saying, well, this Creag Robertson leaving and X, Y, and Z leaving means there's definitely a takeover on the cards. For me, that those two things are different. I think they're different propositions. So I wouldn't say just because there is clearly a bit of strife at board and executive and football level, if we ever get back to talking about football, clearly there's issues in all of those areas. I don't think that means to say there's going to be an investor from America or the Far East or Europe or whatever. I think there's two very different set of circumstances right now.
Yeah, we'll move on to the football shortly. Andy Max said the AGM might end up being a one-man show. We need to get some bodies on that top table. Blue Nose John with the point says, did we go back to the drawing board after Jim Gillespie turned us down? Well, John Gilligan did say he would be returning to conversations with some of the other candidates that they were speaking to in the run-up to Jim Gillespie turning that one down. We haven't heard anything since. There was a comment a wee while ago I noted saying that should be asking for another update from the interim chairman. Not necessarily sure we'll get that at this point, but I would like to think that the process is being carried out as we speak. Chris, who that CEO will turn out to be, I have no idea. But they pretty much did go back to the drawing board. Will it be a concern? His comments, I think, was it to Sky, the interview he gave when he said he would be returning to some of the candidates they were speaking to before. That slightly concerned me somewhat because I just felt if they weren't good enough at that point, are they good enough now? But what do you make of it, the whole CEO search? Do you think Rangers will get someone in before the AGM, before Christmas, as John Gilligan said?
before the AGM, we can't be that far away from it. You're looking at the accounts out in another 4 to 6 weeks, going on usual timescales. Then looking at end of November, early December for the AGM. I know John made that comment about having someone in before Christmas. I don't know whether he meant someone actually in the building before Christmas or just an appointment made, because I think you have to remember there will be, or potentially for whatever candidate it is, there's potentially a notice period that has to be worked. Could that be 3 months? It could be 6 months. If Rangers are really, really committed to a candidate and they believe that he is the right man and it's the best option for the club, are you then prepared to wait and allow him to work that notice period? I say it could be up to 6 months in some regards. That would then leave you almost a year without a chief exec if those timescales are to be played out. The other side of it is you take someone who doesn't have that particular timescale on them. It doesn't have that notice period, who can start next week if you want, but is the person that can start next week the best candidate? So that's the situation. I think that's the thing that Rangers have to weigh up right now. We know what they're looking for. We had a piece on the site a few weeks ago, outlining what Rangers should be looking for, some of the key qualities that are required for that new chief exec. I think John almost kind of backed it up, and he spoke about that when he held his media conference 4 weeks ago now, maybe. So we know what they're looking for, who they're looking for, and who they're speaking to. That's yet to be confirmed, unfortunately. But that's the dilemma they've got. It's almost like do you ever sign a player just to get someone in the door, or do you sign a player that can take you to the next level, that's going to do a proper job? I think that's almost where they are in terms of the CEO. Do you appoint someone just so you can say it's a box tick and it's something off the to-do list, but you know that there's potentially someone out there? So that's interesting to see how they do, because obviously if you're going to appoint someone who does have a notice period, Christmas is fast approaching, as the kids keep telling me. So it's very, the timescales in terms of Christmas are getting quite tight. Yeah. Ultimately, I wouldn't put too much focus on that Christmas timescale that John referenced. For me, it's more important that it's the right person for the longer term, even if that does mean, I say, you have to operate without a chief exec while your preferred candidate goes through that notice period.
Yep. So that's more boardroom changes behind the scenes, folks. The Creag Robertson departing the club. Let's move on to on-pitch stuff. We are in the midst of the international break, of course, but still stuff to talk about. First of all, as I mentioned, we are back on Facebook. Peggy is a fan. She says, "Good morning, boys and all. We're back on Facebook. Thank you so much to the bosses." Yeah, no problem at all, Peggy. And she also says, "Did I see Danilo back in training?" Yes, he posted on his Instagram. He's back in training. The manager did say he hopes to have both he and Ridvan back in contention by the end of the international break, which will be a boost. How long they last, who knows? We know they have been plagued by injury issues ever since they arrived at the club, the pair of them. But I touched on this with Stevie yesterday, Chris, about the striking situation. Cyril Dessers not firing on all cylinders at this moment in time. Hamza Igaman very much learning his trade at this time. You can't hang your hat on him coming off the bench and getting you a goal at this point. Danilo is someone that you hope can come in and contribute. I still think the jury's out on him, whether he can be Rangers, whether he can score upwards of 10, 15 goals this season. I'm not entirely sure he can, but good to see him back in training all the same.
It's definitely a positive. Firstly, for Danny, who has, as we know, has endured really, really difficult, almost 12 months now. Coming up to the anniversary of that injury that he suffered at Tynecastle. Had to go through a lot during that rehab process. As he said in the interview that we had with him over the summer, and as he's spoken about a couple of times in interviews since. Clearly a really difficult time for him. Hopefully this process that he's been through over the last couple of weeks, hopefully that's him over the worst of it. because I think, as you outlined there, Derek, and as we've spoken about previously, Rangers are short of goals. Can he get to 15 or so this season? I think that would be a really impressive second half of the campaign. Even if he only gets 8, 10, those 8 to 10 could be really important ones. It would take a bit of the burden off Cyril Dessers. Like a man, I think you can utilise him. You can give him minutes. Can you bank on him? Can you put too much pressure on him? No, because he's just not at that particular level yet. It's still got so much to prove. The goals in this side were a concern for me last season. That turned out to be the case. Just didn't have enough when it really mattered most. Last couple of weeks, certainly domestically, the issues at the other end of the pitch I look to be getting there. Now, Rangers do look more solid defensively, certainly in Premiership terms. But you look at the way the games have gone in the last few weeks, they don't look like going and blowing anyone away. It's rather slow. It's a bit pedestrian. Yeah. It's lacking a bit of spark, lacking a bit of guile. We hope that Bayrami can offer that from number 10, or potentially out wide. Also, Yanis Hadji coming back in could potentially offer that. But you're still looking at your number 9, the guy that's leading that line, the guy that's got that role. He's going to be your main source of goals. Would you back Dessers to match last season's target? I think he'll probably go through another purple patch. If he gets to 20, I wouldn't be surprised. But again, like we said over the course of the summer, it's fine having one guy doing that. Where are the goals coming from elsewhere? James Tavernier is not offering the same attacking threat this season as he has done in previous seasons. Where else? Now you go through that squad, and if you're to put a number against these players and say, well, he'll get X number, he'll get X number, he'll get X number, you're still probably going to come up short, even if you're adding a couple onto respective targets. So it's definitely an issue. The more goals, the more players, the more options the manager has, the better. So as I say, hopefully this is the end of Danilo's troubles, and we can get him back, can see him start to really come onto a game. But I think that patience factor will come into play once again. The manager clearly had to be patient with him when he came back the first time. That's still going to be the case second time around. So don't expect him to win a matchday squad and start games. It's going to be a gradual build-up, but hopefully that build-up this time around gets him back to a level where he can then contribute more going forward.
Yeah, knee injuries are always a problem. I remember when he spoke to us after the Birmingham game in pre-season, and he said it was a lot was in his mind, and he had to try and blank it out when he stepped onto the pitch. But it's something that will be hard to recover from, not only physically but mentally as well. I just worry that we won't see him fit and firing properly in a Rangers jersey. I hope I am wrong, but yeah, back in training. So let's hope we can get back and then contribute to the Rangers 11. That goal difference that you mentioned there, Chris, I mean, you look at it now, Celtic goal difference plus 21, Rangers plus 8. And we're only, how many games into the season? 7 games in. So that tells you everything you need to know. Even the other night there against St Johnstone, you're thinking to yourself, go and get one and then go and get a good few more. But they just struggle to do that, don't they? They're just, like you say, there's not enough goals in the team. I think you have to go back to the 55 season, the last time we've seen a lot of players contributing a number of goals, not only from the forward positions, but midfield. He touched on Bayrami. We're hoping that he can certainly contribute, but we need others in there as well, because that goal difference, that's another point in effect, isn't it? And Rangers have been playing catch up in that department for too long now.
You mentioned the 55 season. I was scrolling through my Twitter, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and the Defoe goal against Livingston, the Tav over the top, a first time finish. If only. Now that was a guy that Rangers didn't have to play every single week, but if you needed a change, if you needed an option, if you needed a goal in a game, what an option to have. Options that Rangers just don't have right now, and it's levels. It's and as you say that goal difference it may well be a factor. I fear that the title race won't be that close this season. The goal difference turns into a factor, but right now it's just another thing that you can look at and say Rangers just not quite
It's
there.
killing teams off, isn't it? It's just killing teams off in the first half. Just blow them away, but Rangers can't seem to do that, unfortunately.
No, and even if you take just St Johnstone as an example, without picking on them, Celtic go up there a couple of weeks ago and rack up the goals. Rangers have them at Ibrox in a game. Now the red card to Hadji could potentially be a point to say, well, that's changed it to an extent. But Rangers, I say, never looked like the format for these games. It sounds easy to say, but the format is fairly straightforward. You score early on, and that's you not losing the game. Score again before half time. Opposition then know they're in for a long second half, and it's then about how many you go and try and win by. Now that's obviously easier said than done, but it's been a long time since Rangers have felt in that groove where games were going to be as easy as that, where you're going to get that first goal early on, a bit of pressure was going to pay off, and you break the opposition resistance, and after that, so you then just keep pushing forward, you keep creating chances. Rangers are not relentless enough, are not ruthless enough, they don't have that cutting edge, and even when they do create the chances, you've got a number 9 who misses his fair share. You look at the wide areas, we don't know how many Bayrami is going to be able to contribute. The Cortez issue is also now an even longer term one. Matondo can't be relied on as a regular scorer of goals. Ross McCausland able to chip in, but probably not in double figures. So I say if you go through all the players in the squad, there's just not a lot there. You then look at the midfield. I spoke to Kevin Thompson about Conor Barron at the start of the season. When he had him at Kelty, he was urging him to try and get forward more and try and add goals to his game. Never really looked like it here. Kieran Dowell, what are you going to get from him? Diomande hasn't really looked like scoring since he got a couple last season. So there's definitely room for improvement. I think it would be a polite way of putting it, but it's definitely a concern, because if you don't go and kill teams off, you always leave yourself susceptible at the other end. And how many times have we seen that particular movie in recent seasons?
Yep, just on the issue of a striker, a Defoe type striker. Now, Gary raises an interesting point. I'll address this. He says Ben Yedder still without a club. He could be that Defoe type player. Ben Yedder is actually set to appear in court next month. He was arrested after an alleged sexual assault, and he is not allowed to leave an area of France between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. So I think that one is kicked into touch. He is 34 years of age. He worked with Clermont at Monaco, but that one certainly will not be happening. Right, that'll do us there. Big thanks to Chris as ever, and thank you to you all for tuning in to the show. It's very much appreciated. We did, for those of you that are Rangers Review Extra members, recorded our weekly Q&A on Monday, and we expect to have another couple of shows this week to keep you tidied over with Rangers content, even though we're in the international break. There's a great piece on the website this morning from Chris on Nico Raskin and how he can try and really force himself into Philip Clement's plans longer term. He's another one I think we would like to see him start showing why he was brought to the club in the first place. Another thing as well that I've forgotten, something that I don't really look upon really, and many of you watch the show in the morning. If you like the show, then hit the like button. As Bob says there, hit the likes, folks. Helps us a great deal here at the channel. But thank you for tuning in as ever, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow. Bye for now.